I want to know your thoughts on Spotify and Neil Young pulling his music off it.
First of all, I love Neil Young and I love Neil Young's music. But the idea that it was worth $4 billion in value to Spotify caught me off guard. But when he pulled his music off of Spotify and Spotify went down, I was like, that doesn't seem right. And I would say this: don't leave, don't abandon, don't censor, engage. I'm not saying it's always going to work out fruitfully, but I'm always of the mindset that engagement, and especially with someone like a Joe Rogan, who is not, in my mind, an ideologue in any way. Misinformation will always be out there, but if the algorithm drives people further and further down the rabbit hole, the algorithm is the amplifier and the catalyst of extremism. And if you can, I would much rather with the algorithm than deplatform and all these other things. And there's no question that there is egregious misinformation that's purposeful and hateful and all those other things. And that being moderated is a credit to the platforms that run them. But this overreaction to Rogan, I think is a mistake. I really do. And
do you think it gives him power to react in this way versus if you actually wanted to say something against his?
Joe Rogan has power because so many people listen to him.
Lots of points said there by Jon Stewart. One specific that is being mentioned a lot is the overreaction that he pointed out with Spotify, and everyone's responding to what has been going on with Joe Rogan, and also with artists like Neil Young leaving, as he pointed out there. Algorithm talk and how it drives people more into these corners of extremism. All of these can be discussed. I'm not sure if he touched on exactly what another person that's very well knows very much about making money off of creativity, artistry, comedians. Let's listen to what this young comedian says.
The problem with the Spotify discussion is not really about Rogan. It's about Spotify being a massive, greedy corporation that has been underpaying artists for years. As frontman for Eve 6 writes on Twitter, Joe Rogan only matters in that he's a glaring example of Spotify's obscenely exploitative business practices. I don't care where he's platformed, he's gonna be platformed somewhere. I care that Spotify gave him $300 million that they owe artists. And some of the artists that it has been underpaying are other comedians. Nope, not Rogan, but big old comedians like Tiffany Haddish or Mike Birbiglia. Those folks tried to sue to get some royalties for the plays that they got on Spotify. And what happened? Spotify removed their albums entirely. They didn't even have to quit and protest. Spotify just canceled them and deplatformed them for everyone who's worried about deplatforming Rogan all of a sudden. Meanwhile, the comedians that do remain, like Matt O'Brien, write things like this. Hey, why doesn't everyone switch to SiriusXM instead of Spotify? A lot of comedians, myself included, his main source of income is from plays on SiriusXM, and I have literally made 0.0000007 cents from Spotify. I want to know what Joe Rogan has to say about his fellow comics getting underpaid from his platform.
Francesca Fiorentini points out some of the other issues with Spotify that weren't really addressed by Jon Stewart there. He's concerned about the potential canceling. And before I let you elaborate on that more, Francesca, let's just point out this one graph here as one of the reasons why Spotify might want to continue to support Joe Rogan, because it's a moneymaker. Let's look at how many, we know this already about Joe Rogan's show. How for quarter 3 of 2021, the media ratings for Joe Rogan Experience on Spotify, 11, that's average viewers per show in the millions, 11 million there. You see how much further that is. And the second one next behind him is Tucker Carlson tonight with 3.24. So there's one of the reasons why you may have this, I guess, leniency or acceptance, or maybe just small changes for what he's doing there. Can you elaborate more on some of the other issues there, Francesca?
I agree with everything that comedian said. I mean, you should really follow her on all the platforms at Franny Fio. She's got things to say.
She figured it out.
Look, it is true that comics and a lot of folks are not paid fairly on Spotify, that Spotify is a rank corporation all around. And that's why they're never gonna drop someone like Rogan unless this gets a whole lot bigger. And I still have doubts. Just going back to what Jon Stewart said, there's a couple problems with how he framed things. And I don't think he's totally wrong, but I do think, here's how he's not wrong. I do think it's difficult to so-called deplatform or cancel Rogan. He's got a giant listenership. He will be platformed somewhere, right? That's why I think a lot of folks like frontman for Eve 6 are like, the real question is, how is Spotify treating other artists less fairly, given 300 million, 100 million, whatever it is, to Joe Rogan for that contract? So that's where I think Stewart might be right. Too big to cancel. There's such a thing. Too big to fail in banks, too big to cancel. Here's where he's not right. It's the algorithm. Like it's some, godlike deity that comes down and tells us, what we must do. And it just radicalizes people on its own. Right. No, it's Facebook, it's Google, it is Twitter, and it is Spotify. These are places and corporations that make money off of people going down those extremist rabbit holes. So don't front like all these platforms are making money. And what do you think about Trump being kicked off Twitter? Did we lose so-called engagement from that loss? I would argue no. Last point on this, Joe Rogan is not as open-minded and sort of like kind of just stepping into this, wading into this, kind of like not an ideologue as everyone thinks he is. He's platformed Alex Jones multiple times. He's platformed Gavin McInnes multiple times. You show me the times that he's had someone like Ilhan Omar or someone from the Black Lives Matter movement who really believes in abolition. Let's talk about police abolition. If you're so open-minded, you're so crazy or radical, whatever. But he doesn't. We know who he platforms. I think he's a lot smarter than we give him credit for, or that he lets on.
It allows many times for you to be like, I don't know, I'm just letting people talk. And we know that's how a lot of times when it comes to these conversations, he's like, I'm just open-minded, I wanna hear all points of view. And it allows everyone, no matter what their point of view may be on each specific issue, because when it comes to masking and vaccines and all that stuff, that's not always just a conservative versus liberal issue. I think that should be dispelled in the first place. There's plenty of Democratic voters who are super anti-vaccine. It's just the way it is. So it allows this open up for so many people to come in, which is a good business practice because a lot of people will listen because it opens that up. Now, there was a response. Let's jump down to this fourth quarter because I do want to see what the Spotify CEO did say in response to all this as this is happening. So Daniel Ek here was quoted as saying, everyone is a little upset, especially the people whose initiatives directly contradict what's happening. That says one current employee who was asked to remain anonymous as to not compromise their job. So people are feeling increasingly frustrated that no matter what the company says messaging wise, or no matter what people's initiatives are, it all kind of ladders up to what's the best for Joe Rogan and Joe Rogan's audience. So there was a question and answer session during this back and forth, this bit of a town hall that the CEO was having. And they questioned whether the platform rules are stringent enough for things like this. And if the company's latest actions did enough to address the scientific community's concerns, and how employees work to advance diversity within the company, and how it can reckon with some of Rogan's comments, like his questioning of Black identity, which we saw just before. So lastly, X response, again, this is the Spotify CEO. He responded with the same messaging he employed earlier, but added that exclusivity does not equal endorsement, and said that the solution to this problem might be signing more exclusives. The real thing here is to try to go for an even broader set of exclusives that represent even more voices. So I think they're calling you, Francesca, more voices, more exclusivity. Is that happening for you?
Bitchuation Room podcast, get it on Spotify. I'm not wealthy enough to deplatform or go against Spotify, not yet. Looking to become a rock legend. And then I'll go away.
Maybe if you open up your discussions to more people, maybe people start 11 million listeners constantly. I mean, maybe
that's how it happens. You know what's disgusting about what you just said is that's exactly how it happens. If you platform right wingers, we all know fake news, outlandish like conspiracy theories, they spread however many thousands of times faster than actual news. So if you are just starting out, you just have a bunch of like right wing, far crazy takes, yeah, you'll grow. You'll grow a lot faster, and maybe you'll get a Spotify deal.